Well, good afternoon, family and friends. Pastor David here with Tabernacle Baptist Church for our Monday Minute. Today is Monday, October the 7th, and yesterday in Sunday school, tremendous lesson on the Apostle Paul and strength and weakness, and strength comes through weakness and relying on the Lord. And we are in some unusual days, no doubt, with the effects of the hurricane, with the upcoming election, with such an unsettled time, if we could use that verbiage. And the idea that we as God's children, although we may feel weak, we can find strength in Him. That we can rely on Him. We can trust Him. Our weakness is a sign, or our weakness is an opportunity for Him to do a work. God's standard of strength is very much so different than our standard of strength. And He promises that He can come alongside us, that He can help us, that He can guide us. We'll see here in 2 Corinthians chapter number 12, reading in verse 7, the Bible says this: "Unless I should be exalted above measure, the abundance of the revelation, there is given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And He said, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong." We should be reminded that weakness is not a disadvantage. It's really a helpline for God's strength. And God didn't intend for the Christian to live apart from Him. We rely on Him, or we abide in Him. We trust Him. So the first step to thinking about having this strength and weakness is to admit that we're weak. I can't. The idea that He's in control. The idea that we have to admit that He's in control. I can't. The second thing is this: acknowledge He can. We're acknowledging, God, You know the end from the beginning. God, You know what is ahead. And God, I'm trusting You in this circumstance. And then number 3, verse 10, allow that He will. The idea that strength comes through weakness. The idea that we are relying on Him. Verse 10, the Bible says this: "Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distress for Christ's sake." It says He took pleasure in all these things. Another passage, it talks about how many times He was shipwrecked and how many times He was beaten. He says He takes pleasure in all these things, in distress for Christ's sake. And He finishes verse 10, "For when I am weak, then am I strong." The idea that in the midst of hardship, in the midst of difficulty, that he found strength that only can come from the Lord. And I don't know what you'll face this week, whether in your family, in your job, maybe a situation with your health. But I would remind you that the Lord and His care is sufficient, and that He can help us regardless of what the circumstance is, or even what the circumstance looks like. So this week, rely on Him. Admit you're weak. Acknowledge He can help you, and allow Him to do a work that only He can do. I hope you have a blessed week. Looking forward to a great week ahead here at Tabernacle Baptist Church.